If you think fashion today is complicated, well, let's take a look back about 5,000 years.
Uh-huh.
We're going to skip the history books today and go straight to the closet and the vanity table of the people of ancient Egypt.
It's a great place to look.
Because for them, style wasn't just about looking good. It was this whole sophisticated system of survival and status and even religious protection.
It's so true. When
Yeah.
you dig into it, you see a culture where every single choice, I mean, from the type of fiber in a kilt to the dark line around your eye, was just loaded with meaning.
Right.
So our mission today is to really uncover the hard facts about their materials, their clothes, their beauty routines, and show how their entire look was perfectly engineered for life on the Nile.
Okay, so let's start with the absolute bedrock of their wardrobe, linen. If you had to pick one king among materials in Egypt, it would be linen, hands down.
Oh, absolutely. And that choice is a perfect example of your location driving your fashion. It just makes sense.
What?
Well, linen is made from the flax plant, which grew, abundantly in that rich irrigated soil all along the Nile River.
So it was local, it was available.
Exactly. But its real advantage was purely practical. It was all about the climate.
Practicality defined everything. We're talking about a scorching desert environment.
And linen is it's lightweight, it's incredibly breathable, it lets the air flow, it wicks moisture away. It's basically the perfect temperature-regulating fabric for that kind of heat.
But I think what a lot of people miss is just how much labor was involved in making it.
Oh, it was a monumental task. The whole process of transforming flax into fine linen it was intense. You had to soak it, beat it, spin it, all by hand.
So that effort, that time and skill meant the fabric wasn't just some commodity. It was a really precious resource.
And that cost immediately created a way to show status.
Right. Because most clothing was just its natural white color, since dyeing was so difficult and expensive. So in a world where everyone's wearing white, how do you stand out?
That wasn't the color, it was the quality.
Yeah.
Thread count, if you will.
So if you were really wealthy.
You wore linen so finely spun that it was nearly transparent, a kind of gossamer fabric that showed you could afford the absolute best craftsmanship.
And workers.
They'd wear coarse, thick versions, durable, for sure, but not delicate. You could basically read a person's financial statement just by looking at the quality of their drape.
And speaking of drape, the clothes themselves were surprisingly simple. They were rarely stitched.
Nope. Most garments were just these rectangular pieces of fabric that were wrapped and draped and tied. It was all about maximizing movement and, again, staying cool.
So let's look at the specific garments. For men, we have to start with the classic Sinti, the kilt.
The kilt. It was really just a piece of linen wrapped around the hips and then tied with a belt. Super simple.
But even that simplicity was a piece of information, right? The length told a story.
It really did. Younger men or guys doing physical labor, they wore very short kilts. It just gave them maximum freedom of movement.
Whereas the higher up you went on the social ladder, an official, a scribe.
The longer the kilt became. A long garment that reached your ankles was a clear signal that you were not doing any strenuous, dirty physical work.
And in later periods, like the New Kingdom, men started to add these light, almost shawl-like tunics over their shoulders for a little extra style.
Exactly. And the belts holding the senti in place could be anything from a simple rope to something decorated with intricate knots and patterns for the elite.
Okay, so for women, the main garment was the caliceris.
Yes, the calasiris. This was a straight, very close-fitting dress, usually ankle length. It was held up by one or two wide shoulder straps.
And like the men's clothing, it was almost always white.
Mostly white. But wealthier women might add some decoration. You'd see things like beautiful beading or embroidery along the neckline or the hem.
And then during the New Kingdom, there was another style shift. Women started wearing these really complex pleated garments.
Yes, these elegant, flowing capes. They looked incredible because the pleats would catch the light and really show off the sheer quality of the expensive linen.
But they were still practical.
Oh, absolutely. Because they were so voluminous, they were still very airy and comfortable. It was proof that you could have high fashion without, overheating.
All right, let's move down to the feet. For most day-to-day life, were they even wearing shoes?
Not really. Most Egyptians were barefoot, especially around the house or out in the fields.
So sandals were for special occasions.
For special occasions or for rough terrain. And they were typically woven from papyrus or palm leaves. Again, the goal was minimal weight and no heat retention.
Leather sandals existed, but I'm guessing they were expensive.
Much more expensive. So they were really reserved for the very wealthy. And royalty had these very distinct sandals. with pointed toes that actually curled upwards.
I've seen drawings of that.
What's really interesting is that in a lot of art, you see people carrying their sandals instead of wearing them.
Huh.
It suggests they were seen as special equipment, something you put on just before you enter a temple, not something you'd wear around the house.
Okay, so the clothes were simple and white for practical reasons, but jewelry. That's where the color and symbolism just explodes.
Absolutely. Both men and women were covered in it.
And the most iconic piece has to be the wisek, that huge, colorful collar.
It's incredible, isn't it? It wasn't just a necklace. It was this massive, multi-layered piece designed to cover the shoulders and the whole upper chest. It created this stunning pop of color against the white linen.
And the craftsmanship was amazing. They used gold, copper, colorful stones.
And a material called faience, which was a kind of durable, vibrant ceramic glaze. They'd make thousands of tiny tube-shaped beads from it to build up the layers of the collar.
I heard some of them were so heavy they actually needed a counterweight in the back to sit properly.
That's right, just to make sure they lay perfectly flat. Beyond the wisek, you'd see bracelets, armbands, rings, earrings, all very popular.
And again, the materials told you who you were.
Of course. The rich used gold, lapis lazuli, and carnelian. People with less money would use brightly colored clay or glass beads to get a similar look.
But the jewelry was more than just decoration, wasn't it?
Oh, much more. Many pieces were worn as powerful amulets, believed to give the wearer magical protection. So the complexity of your jewelry didn't just signal your wealth, it signaled your access to divine favor.
And that idea of protection leads us right into their beauty routine. This was a huge, non-negotiable part of daily life for everyone, men and women.
Everyone.
We have to start with kohl, that famous thick, dark eyeliner.
The most iconic cosmetic, for sure. It was made from a crushed lead sulfide mineral called galena, and they'd apply it with a little stick made of wood or bone.
Now, here's the really fascinating part. Everyone knows it was used to reduce the glare from the desert sun, kind of like those anti-glare strips athletes wear.
Right, but recent research suggests it did something far more sophisticated. It turns out the lead compounds in the galena, when they mixed with the moisture in your eyes, actually generated tiny amounts of nitric oxide.
And what does nitric oxide do?
Well, it's known to stimulate the immune system. So by wearing kohl, they were effectively applying a chemical that acted as a disinfectant.
No way.
Yes. It helped protect their eyes from the infections and insects that were so common along the humid Nile. It wasn't just makeup, it was medicine.
That is incredible. They were protecting their health through their fashion choices.
Exactly. And they also used green eye paint made from mineral called malachite, especially in the earlier periods.
And they kept all this stuff in beautiful little pots and jars.
Beautifully crafted containers. And their commitment to skincare was just as serious. The desert air is so dry and harsh.
So they needed moisturizers.
They use a lot of different oils and animal fats to protect their skin. And they valued cleanliness so highly, it was seen as a sign of holiness. Many people would bathe several times a day.
They also loved fragrance.
Oh, they were all about smelling good. They'd rub scented oils infused with things like lily or cinnamon all over their bodies after bathing.
Okay, you have to tell me about the scented cones. This is one of the weirdest and coolest details.
Ah, the banquet cones. Yes. At big parties, guests would sometimes wear these small cones on their heads. They were made of solidified, scented animal fat.
So you just have a cone of fat on your head all night?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And as the evening went on, the heat of the room and your own body heat would slowly melt the cone.
And it would drip down.
It would drip down over your hair and clothes, releasing this pleasant, slow-release perfume.
I cannot imagine worrying about my perfume cone melting all over my dress, but it just shows how important fragrance was.
It really does.
Oh.
And speaking of what was on their heads, or what wasn't, many adults shaved their heads completely.
That seems extreme.
It was practical. It helped them stay cool, but more importantly, it was a way to avoid the constant problem of head lice.
Which was a big deal back
A
then.
huge deal. You even see it with children, who often had shaved heads except for one long lock of hair left on the side.
So with a shaved head, you'd need sun protection, and that's where wigs come in.
Exactly. They wore these incredibly elaborate wigs made from human hair or sheep wool. To keep those complex braids and curls in shape, they'd coat them with beeswax.
And a wig was the ultimate status symbol.
Maybe the ultimate. Wealthy people owned multiple wigs for different occasions, some braided, some curled, sometimes decorated with gold ornaments or even fresh flowers. The quality of your wig just screamed, "I'm important."
So if the white clothes were a blank canvas, the accessories and makeup were the language. especially color.
Color was everything. It wasn't just decorative. It was a whole system of symbolic meaning.
Let's break that down. Blue, for instance.
Blue represented the Nile River and the sky, so it symbolized creation,
Yeah.
life.
Green seems obvious for an agricultural society.
Right, it was all about growth, fertility, new life. Red was a bit more complex.
How so?
It could represent strength and life force, but also the dangerous, destructive heat of the desert. It was a powerful, volatile color.
And gold, or yellow.
That was reserved for the sun and the skin of the gods. Gold was perfect because it's eternal. It doesn't tarnish or fade, so it symbolized immortality.
And they would choose specific colors for their amulets to, what, attract specific kinds of luck?
Exactly. It was a form of personalized divine protection.
This all peaks, of course, with the pharaoh. His style was designed to physically and divinely separate him from every other person.
Absolutely. The pharaoh wore specialized regalia. Think of the Needs headcloth, that iconic striped cloth with the protective cobra symbol on the front.
Which was basically a very fancy dust shield.
Functionally, yes. But symbolically, it was the definition of power. And he had more than one crown,
He had the white crown for Upper Egypt and the red crown for Lower Egypt.
which he would often combine into the double crown to show his unified rule over both lands.
Yeah,
And his clothing, of course, was the best of the best.
the finest possible linen decorated with gold thread, gems.
Even the royal kilts were far more elaborate, with complex pleating and long ceremonial sashes.
And all the way down the social ladder, these divisions were just as clear.
Starkly clear. A farmer wore a simple loincloth of coarse linen or leather. He needed to stay cool and move freely.
While a scribe, sitting at a desk all day, wore a long, pristine white kilt.
That whiteness, that length, it showed he didn't do physical labor. And the most complex pleating was reserved for those who could afford to pay professionals to maintain it,
Even priests had their own dress code, sometimes wearing leopard skins for ceremonies.
tying them directly to ancient traditions and the power of the animal.
And to maintain all of this, they developed some really sophisticated tools.
They really did. Their mirrors weren't glass. They were highly polished sheets of bronze or silver, often with these beautifully carved handles. They used copper razors to remove all body hair.
Which was seen as unhygienic.
Right. And they had stone pallets just for grinding their minerals for eye paint, and these wonderfully carved containers for their creams and oils.
And the final detail, which connects their daily life to their religious beliefs, is that these tools were often buried with them.
Yes. It shows that they believed these routines were so important that they would continue them in the afterlife, applying their kohl, softening their skin, perfecting their wigs. It elevates personal grooming to a spiritual level.
So, if you take anything away from this, it's that ancient Egyptian fashion was this brilliant combination of climate engineering and social engineering.
Every single piece of cloth, every choice of stone, every line of eye makeup served a purpose, cooling the body, fighting infection, signaling your status, or ensuring divine protection.
It wasn't just clothing, it was a complex communication system.
It really makes you think. When you get dressed today, you're rarely just putting on fabric, you're choosing a signal.
Now that's something to mull over. Good luck with your studies.